What is going on, everyone? Today we're going to be unboxing, going over the features and specs, and thoroughly testing this JFEGWO F75 portable air compressor unit. As you see here, it comes in a convenient carrying case, very small in size, so it's compact and can be stored in many places. Just a quick little overview here showing you the construction. You can see there's a light on the top side that we'll touch on in a little bit. Hold the center button down for a few seconds and that will power up the 3.2-inch digital LCD display. And then you have the thank you card, which doubles as the operating instructions and troubleshooting instructions. As you see here, they're in full color, easy to read. Tells you basic functions and any sort of specifications you may want to know about this unit. In the zipper pouch of the carrying case, we also have the USB to USB-C charging cord. The USB-C end plugs into the compressor, and the USB normal end will plug into a wall charging brick. Last but not least, we have our air hose assembly with multiple different attachments. Today we're going to be focusing on airing up tires, as I don't really have any pedal bikes or balls or anything like that to air up with these attachments. But if you want them, you'll just take whichever attachment you need. In this case, let's say the needle attachment, pull it out of the plastic harness, unlock the air chuck, put your attachment in there, and then lock the air chuck. When you're done using that attachment, simply unlock the end of the air chuck, remove that attachment, and reinsert it to the plastic tether for stowage. Then once you have the appropriate attachment for what you're doing, simply ensure that the rubber O-ring is on the end of the nylon braided hose and thread the hose into the end of the compressor unit, then tighten by turning clockwise. You don't need to reef on it with pliers or anything, just tighten it down by hand until it snugs up. And of course, removal of the hose is just opposite of installation. You'll rotate it counterclockwise to separate the hose from the compressor. Make sure that the rubber O-ring comes with the hose. Don't lose that. So now I'll demonstrate the flashlight modes. We've got a 400 lumen flashlight on this unit. You've got steady, strobe, and SOS functions. And then to power the unit off, you'll just hold the middle button down for a few seconds again, and the screen will go dark. On the back side, you have some more basic product specifications. This unit has 5 different inflation modes. You have car mode, which goes from 26 to 51 PSI, motorcycle from 26 to 43 PSI, bicycle from 30 all the way to 150 PSI, balls from 4 to 16 PSI, and then manual mode from 3 all the way to 200 PSI. So 3 to 200 is your operating range. And the display also includes features such as fast charging, battery level indicator, the LED flashlight mode currently being used, and high temp warning, as well as, of course, your selected pressure, which can be displayed in PSI, bar, or kilopascals, kPa. The unit is relatively quiet at roughly 40 decibels, and as mentioned earlier, is nice and compact in size. Now let's go outside and test this thing out on a couple different units. This is my first time using it, so we're really going to put it through its paces. Also, just a quick note, it is pretty cold out today, so it will be testing the durability of cold operating temperatures. I'll put a little screenshot showing the temp that it is on the first clip here. So let's hook it up to my four-wheeler here and get all these tires up to around 8 PSI, because they're all flat pretty much. Yeah, it's registering as 0 PSI. Well, you can see it's flat. And we'll select what we're doing here. Certain choices will have different parameters. Basketball or volleyball, any sort of inflatable ball goes from 4 up to 16. I want to be at 8, so I'll just go ahead and leave it on basketball and go to 8. It's pretty quiet. All right, you can see the tire looking much better. For those wondering why only 8 pounds of air, these things are only supposed to be to about 5 pounds actually on ATVs, but because it leaks, I overfill it by just a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead, jump right from that one. I'm gonna do all 4 of them, get them all to 8 PSI. That way we put this thing through its paces. As you see there, it ran for a couple of minutes. So we're just gonna keep using it, put it through its paces, and try to get a decent durability test out of it here. be quick about removing it so you don't lose any air, or as little as possible anyway. All right, so this one's not at 0, it's at 3.5, but we're still gonna go. All right, and on to the last one. Make sure you're pushing it on as far as it'll go. Give it a little wiggle when you push it on. Make sure you're pushing it on nice and straight, and support the hose as you lock this down. You don't want to just bend it over like that. You don't want to rip your valve stem. Now, doesn't that look much better? Gonna roll a lot nicer, that's for sure. So we got 3 tires on the four-wheeler from 0 up to 8 PSI, and the last one from 3.5 up to 8. And while that's not a whole lot of pressure, there's still a decent amount of volume in there considering they're 4 decent-sized tires. The unit itself has hardly any warmth to it. It doesn't seem to be working too hard there. And I've noticed the hottest point when using this is right here underneath this little kind of like black shrink tubing. That's because there's a piece of copper or brass under there. It's the piece that threads into the compressor, so the air that comes out of the compressor can get pretty hot when you're using it for a long period of time or at high pressures. So I just recommend not grabbing it right here. Just be kind of careful if you're going to use it for a really long time. I know this is flickering on the camera. It's just because the refresh rate of the screen matches the phone camera. It's all lit up nice and solid in person. All right, well, we're just getting started here though. So we're gonna air up one more ATV tire here that's flat from 0 to 8 PSI again on a different four-wheeler. I did fully recharge this unit before doing this single ATV tire here, just because it has not been charged yet. All of the inflation done on the first ATV was just straight out of the box with no additional charge. And now we're gonna start working it a little bit harder, so I wanted it to be fair and have a full battery. And then we're going to inflate the 2 steer tires on my buddy's side-by-side. Those tires are a fair bit larger than the ATV tires, and those are going to be inflated from 10.5 to 14 PSI each. Okay, now we're all done with the ATVs and the side-by-sides. We're going to move on to a car tire here on this Subaru Outback. This left front tire is down to 11.5 PSI. We are going to air it up to 35. Still have not recharged this since starting out on that single tire we did. This is starting to get close to the working limit of this unit, although it can put out much higher PSI than 35. Once you factor in overall volume, this is getting up there in terms of a lot of air being moved for this unit. All right, there we go, 35 PSI, and as you can see, we're still at 3 out of 4 bars for the battery. Just feel the compressor here. It's a little bit warm, but definitely not hot. I feel this fitting here where it threads into the compressor, and again, this is the hottest point. It is pretty warm, so watch that, but the hose itself isn't too hot to touch. It's just a little warm. So again, just be mindful of that fitting directly threading into the compressor if you're using this for extended periods of time. Now it's supposed to be really cold for the next 2 weeks, so I'm going to fully charge this unit, leave it in my Jeep so it has to deal with the cold elements, and then we'll touch base again here. This has been in my Jeep for probably 2 weeks. It says it's still at full battery. Turn it on, create a load. Yeah, it doesn't like how cold it is. But once we let it warm up, it should be all right. I'm just kind of surprised that it still has full battery even. Now, of course, the unit is cold, so it's not a high temp problem. It's a low temp problem, but it doesn't have a low temp light, just high temp. It just knows that it's out of the general operating parameter temperatures. It is very, very cold, so I'm gonna let it sit and warm up for a few minutes and then just make sure that it still works. But I'm honestly not too surprised that that safety feature kicked in to protect the electronics and of course the compressor itself. When it's super cold, you don't want to damage the compressor. All right, it's been a little while here. I don't know, I'd probably say a half hour. I didn't check it like every minute on the minute, but I just came back in a half hour. Warning went away. It works. And it still has full battery. So no electronics like the extreme cold. If it's really, really cold, make sure to bring it in from time to time. But yeah, it held battery, so that's good. Okay, last but not least here, this compressor is not rated for such heavy duty use, but I'm gonna do it just to show you it can do it in a pinch and to show you that this is the upper limit for this unit. I have my 3/4 ton pickup truck here with slightly oversized tires. They're about 32-inch tall by 11 inches wide, and they're only a 16-inch wheel, which means there's quite a bit of sidewall, which means there's a lot of air volume. And we're gonna be inflating this tire from 29 to 50 PSI. So it's going to take quite some time. That is a lot of air volume. So after over 13 minutes of the compressor running, it actually shut off with the code TO flashing on the display, which is a timeout. You'll note that there's no overprotection lights on in terms of high temp or anything. It just simply times out after a while to give the machine a break because you don't want to overwork it. You don't want to damage it by overheating it or anything. I let it have about a 2-minute break and then I went right back at it and continued inflating the tire. There's 50. All right, so after a grand total of 18.5 minutes, we have achieved 50 PSI on this tire from 29. Now, I don't recommend doing this especially often. I just wanted to show that it can do it in a pinch. I just want you to manage your expectations. Don't expect this thing to be inflating a semi-truck tire to 120 PSI or anything like that. As you can tell by the amount of visible sidewall here, the truck tire holds considerably more air than the car tire, as well as a higher pressure. And I had to be extra careful with that fitting that goes into the compressor because it was very hot after this long run of using the compressor, so always be mindful of that. Once you let the compressor and everything cool down, go ahead and disassemble it, separate the hose from the compressor. You can go ahead and make sure to charge up the compressor for your next use. Go ahead, set the compressor back in the case, lock the end of the air hose chuck, and bend it into a U shape. Don't forget to double check that your O-ring is on the end of the fitting, tuck it into the zipper pouch, then go ahead and fold up your charging cord and pull that in the zipper pouch as well. Go ahead and zip that up. Then you can close the case, zip it up, and store it. Which brings me to my final point. Thanks to how small and compact everything is packaged here, you can bring it with you when you're off-roading, in the Jeep, in your side-by-side, keep it in your tow rig, wherever you want. It's very small. You can take it practically anywhere with you and is very versatile with all of its various attachments. And as shown here, it may take a little bit of time. It's capable of putting out higher volumes and pressures of air. So that is going to wrap up my video overview here on the JFEGWO F75 portable air compressor. Hopefully this was informative for you. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.